Hi, everybody. It's Ron, and we're here for another day of looking at the headlines. And we have this news that just broke. We have a ceasefire in this new big war in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas that's taking place in Gaza. We have some of the hostages that are taken, that are being released, and a 5-day ceasefire. Of course, the background of this is while these wars, just like this, have happened again and again in all sorts of circumstances. Let me just turn off the sound on my phone. I always forget to do that. While these wars have occurred again and again over the decades in all kinds of circumstances, the public opinion, especially in the liberal democracy, democracies of the West, has always been pro-Israel in general. This time, there's a lot of blowback across the spectrum, especially in popular media and social media, against Israel, and a lot of condemnation of Israel about its conduct. Considering what happens if somebody attacks your country like that, for whatever reason, you almost have to overreact to create a precedent for others to understand what happens if your country is attacked in this circumstance. So, in any event, Israel has found itself in a little bit of a surprising situation because of some of the social media, I would say, scrutiny against it over the what's happening in their invasion of the Gaza Strip. Something more about Musk. He's always in the news. Matthew Perry mocked by a comedian. I think that's what comedy is about. He was a beloved person, and Friends, I think, is probably on balance an underrated show. It's kind of overshadowed by other shows in the 90s like Seinfeld and Frasier that were leagues more complex than Friends, but there's some tremendous episodes there and some great comic performances on very simple themes. I don't know what to say about comedy except I'm for it. You can make any kind of joke you want. There may be some blowback, but you better know what you're doing when you make that joke. Here we have a little bit more of the new president of Argentina, the populist, the person who's come in their disastrous economy with 140% inflation. Oh, I wanted to show you this. So, say you have a country that just prints money all the time. Now, the U.S. does that, but it can do that because it's the exchange broker of money of the world. That's another complex story I can go into. So this is how the U.S. of all countries is able to run up a $33 trillion national debt in a little over 20 years and say, no big deal, don't worry about it, and really have no impact on the economy, its own economy, or very little at this point. Oops. But when you go into Central and South America, you have a lot of sick economies that have perpetually had problems for many reasons. But this article pointed out some of these countries that have already gotten rid of their own currency or diminished it in some way and gone on to the US dollar. Now, this is what is being proposed in Argentina, and that will prevent any elected government from going crazy and just deciding to add more money. You know, it's just like you go to the bank and say, I've got $1,000. Could you please change that to 2,000? And they would say, well, no, you can't do that. Yeah, it's not like I'm saying to give it to me now. I just put it that way on the book. I may be in later to withdraw it. They'd say no. But if you own the bank or really own the country the bank is in, you can do that because you own the currency, essentially. So one of the ways you might look at maybe Argentina is say, well, maybe there's this crazy populist guy who's in power now, but how long can he stay in power? And it'll be pretty soon before there's another government that just wants to tax and spend and, scream and yell about how all the great things they're going to do to pay for people. And that destroys the economy, creates inflation. So in this article, we have some other countries. See, here's Ecuador. Ecuador adopted the dollar over 20 years ago. And here we have El Salvador. Dollar became the official currency of El Salvador over 20 years ago as well. They do mention that that can have adverse effects because, again, what it's doing is these countries no longer have their own currency, their own central bank to manage their currency and the exchange rates. They're just going to have to say, we use a currency of another country and it prevents them from inflating their currency. So that sounds like a pretty good idea for a lot of these countries who've had this syndrome of inflation for a long time. Here we have Panama. They've had U.S. bills in circulation since 1904, alongside a local currency, Balboa. Balboa is only issued in metal coins. Interestingly enough, we have Venezuela. We have de facto dollarization. That's a country that maybe is a poster child of inflation. They tried to go all socialist, get all self-sufficient, those sort of things, nationalize foreign business, try to do all the everything they can do in the country and print all the money they want to give out to people because they love the people. And now toilet paper is worth more than gold. I may be exaggerating there, but obviously, if you look into Venezuela, it is one of the modern horror stories of economic mismanagement. And they also mention here some dual currency economies, such as Peru and Uruguay, where dollars are used to pay for certain consumer goods and services, so that it's used in tandem. So that's very interesting. I suppose for me, and I harp on about this, for me, the bigger issue is America inflating its currency because it has a little more leeway to do that, but that can't go on forever either. And we know there's no currency that's ever existed that hasn't been destroyed by its inflation. People inflating the currency. We have more Trump stuff. There's some articles here about doctor insists his health is excellent after gaffes. In the past few days, we've seen this flurry of articles come out trying to transfer some of the fear about Joe Biden's conduct in public, not being able to speak clearly, and saying, well, he's only 81 and Trump's just a few years younger, so no big difference. But clearly it's just not the age, it's how someone conducts himself. And Trump says so many strange things, people have discounted it. But hey, you listen to some of his longer speeches, I may not agree with them, but he does sound lucid, at least. Here we have cross-dressing Roman emperor was trans, museum declares. Clearly this is sort of a right-leaning publication, and they're pointing out how health museum is trying to put a modern concept of gender or sexuality onto a historical figure. And people may say, well, Rome, the Roman Empire was so different with its different ideas about sex that perhaps it's not wise to say that, current, I would say trendy ideas or ideas of the moment that we've taken on, do they really apply to gender or sexuality or the conduct of someone that long ago? if you read anything about the Roman Empire and issues like this, they have very different concepts than the modern world does have about such subjects. Here we have more. I find this fascinating. Ford downsizes plan for battery factory. Apparently, this electric vehicles, people don't want them. I was always intrigued by them, but now it seems to have passed me by. People don't even want them that much anymore. And of course, we have to know, it seems like China's going to eat everybody's lunch on this. Their companies that are making EVs are going to undercut what the West can do, probably, and they're already making great inroads in Asia. Gun ownership reaches all-time high, a record high. I mean, as an American, I would say, well, of course, it doesn't surprise me a bit. I know anybody else in any other country is stunned. They don't understand this. It's just something that's deep in the culture, and anybody who says otherwise is transcending a very strange and boundary that cannot be crossed. Even with all the things that happened, all the shootings, people want more guns. Maybe one concept, and I've said this before, is the idea of liberty. Americans want the liberty to have guns, own them, know that it's under the bed, shoot a guy who comes into their house as a crook. In the same way, it seems like they want to have an abortion. Some of the Republicans are learning the kickback from some of the voters in the election earlier this month, that where people sort of seem to turn their backs against some of the overly strict abortion prohibitions that the Republicans were trying to pass. So, want the liberty to have an abortion and carry a gun while you're having it. Here's a 20-something mayor. Got my JavaScript blocker on. We don't want to see any pictures of ads showing crusty toenails. So, I especially through the Midwest in America, it's a lot of Indian guys and Pakistani guys in the last 30 years. A lot of families like that. A lot of them Republican, oddly enough, and a lot of them in politics, American politics. A lot of second-generation guys who are Americans now, and well, I don't want to be in politics, so they want to do it. Good for them. Here's this more about OpenAI. There was an article it was on Drudge earlier, and I think it's disappeared, but this was the fear that's what's happening is all of the AI technology is again being centered in two giant companies, the same companies who control all of our data and have used it without our permission to create and train and utilize their AI bots. And that's Microsoft and Google. And I think we can see now that, in the past few years, there are all the articles about ad revenue dipping a lot for Google, thinking, well, maybe is that company going to go by the wayside? And of course, Microsoft has the same sort of situation. If they can't roll out their software, their operating systems at a regular rate and force everybody to upgrade. You even had Facebook scrambling with its Meta and all the money they lost on that dumb virtual world, which wasn't even any different than that. I think it was called Half-Life that I used like 25 years ago, and it was no better than what they have today. Well, anyway, it was thought these companies may be on the decline, so we could see what happened what was happening behind the scenes. Everybody knew that AI was the next best thing, and last year when they put it out in the wild, we could start to see that these companies Google, Microsoft, they are banking on AI to keep them at the forefront of technology. And it's a scary thing because they've done it without permission. They're scanning all those pictures that are online. Nobody has given permission with them. I know there's some rules that are slowly coming out for it. I hope they figure out a way to regulate that so that the same brokers who grabbed all the data, Google, the search engines, Bing, cannot now just put everybody else out of business by creating AI-generated creations from it. There's more anti-Semitism and alleged anti-Semitism stuff. Susan Sarandon dumped by Hollywood agency over anti-Jewish rant. You see, that people should be able to discuss these things, pro and against, for and against, but some people seem to think that, going way beyond saying we hope the Palestinians have a homeland, or we hope the Palestinians are able to kick out Hamas out of the Gaza Strip that they took over in 2007. We hope they have peace like they're trying to do in the West Bank. And some people have gone all the way over to seemingly attacking not only Israel, but Jews in general. It's a very strange circumstance. Some people I've read just put it down to, the social clout. You have these communities online of people who spout a lot of different opinions, and you get some sort of virtue signal, as they say, for saying certain opinions and shutting down other people for having opinions. Here we have Thanksgiving in the U.S., people flying. Never understood that, why you'd want to travel during a busy time. Either just don't travel or travel earlier or later. What a nightmare to go to an airport when it's crowded. Polarized world threatens open internet. They've been saying this for years, but it may be closer now than it has been for a long time. This is where perhaps one organization would not would not be in charge of all the standards for all the internet of the world. Maybe this new axis of powers, China, Russia, and its allies, Iran. Iran's a big country online, or it tries to be. Maybe they could set up their own internet that they could restrict and curtail speech in the way they want to. Pay TV erosion. This is the not streaming, but the old-fashioned, what we used to call cable TV, even when there's no cable involved. And it's been going down in the U.S. for many years. This is the first time worldwide it's dropping, which would show more penetration from many other smaller countries, maybe less developed countries. Even there, the internet's good enough that people are going to streaming services or maybe just watching YouTube for free. I know I'm less interested in watching, Marvel movies or the Marvels or that cartoon Velma, but I am interested in hearing commentators on YouTube dunk on it and make fun of it endlessly. That's fun, but I'm not interested in the shows themselves anymore. I'm only interested in the shows as a source of ridicule. Here we have Iran, Wayne sending short-range missiles to Russia. This is part of that new axis of powers that we know about. Includes, North Korea has sent arms to Russia as well. This is a scary situation. What else can you say about it? This is interesting. Must be a great time to be a satanic cult killer. You heard about all these guys in Russia who were let out of prison to go and fight. You want to be a killer? We're not making any use of you in jail, so let's Let's put you on the front line. I would think such people would be probably cowards and would run away, though. I don't know. You'd have to have a gun to their back to force them to take action. So this is my book. There Are Still Unknown Places. It's a novel of Bangkok about people living and working in a concrete city in modern times, in always changing times, and their hopes and their dreams and their fears that push them to some of the most remote places there are. It's on Amazon and Kindle. I hope you want to read it. If you do, let me know what you thought. And we're going to also continue our Art of War playing cards before we leave today. See if we might have some advice from millennia ago about how to conduct ourselves. So here we have, wait a second. What am I doing? Okay. Leave a vulnerability unprotected. Expose an obvious target to your adversary to make it appear that you have set a trap. The basis of that, an adversary's fear of traps, can lead him to pause, though no danger exists. So all of this Art of War stuff is about how you can apply this to your business dealing, your everyday life dealing with other people. Some of it's a little too severe. We had one a few days ago that said its advice was loot a burning house. But one way or another, you can do these literally or probably metaphorically or allegorically. But that's our advice today. Leave a vulnerability unprotected to maybe lure someone in to make it appear that you've set a trap. So anyway, that's the headlines for today. There wasn't a lot. There was that big piece of news about the ceasefire in the Middle East. We'll see if that will calm things down. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.